Welcome to DCS A-10C Startup Training. I'm Top Gun with the AKA Warthog Squadron. I'll be working off of my startup checklist version 2.9. So first off, this is really the only aircraft in the sim where I have to make this note in that anyone with a Thrustmaster Warthog control setup, so stick and rudder or stick and throttle, you need to make sure that all of the switches are in their pre-flight conditions, and the ones in particular are the ones down on the throttle base here. So you've got your engine fuel flow, both need to be in up position. The engine operation switches need to be in their middle positions. APU start needs to be in the aft off position, and then the two switches which are really difficult to see, let me move the throttles here. So the EAC and the radar altimeter need to be in their aft positions, and then the pinky switch, which you can't even really see on the left side of the throttle here, should be in the neutral middle position, and the flap switch should be full forward. So those of you who don't have the Thrustmaster Warthog, you don't need to worry about it. It shouldn't have any impact on it. And also, obviously, you need to have the throttles all the way back beyond the idle stop position. So let's go ahead and get started. We need to get battery power, and then the inverter, and go ahead and turn on your O2 supply. Let's go ahead and turn on our AM radio. So set it to the middle position for transmit receive. And I'm at Seneca, so I'm at 132.000. And if you're wanting to do presets, then you'll need to do accordingly. Let's zoom in on this panel here real quick. So you've got a manual that is set to by default. You can go and switch over to presets, and then you can start using this dial instead. But most people I know just do manual. And do the same thing with the FM radio. Way in the back here, so set it to transmit receive. Again, set it to either manual or presets if you want. I'm not doing any JTAC on this mission, so I'll just leave the frequencies alone. And then lastly, for the radios, you've got the UHF. Set that to main both. And again, you have the option for manual or preset. Let's go ahead and close the canopy. And let's turn on the interior lighting. So over here on this panel, you've got the console lights, flight instruments, engine instruments, and auxiliary. And then you also have the accelerometer and compass, which is basically just these two right here. So let's turn on the left and right fuel boost pumps, and also left and right wing fuel boost pumps. And if you're doing exterior drop tanks, you'll also have to turn those on as well. So you're looking at the fuselage and the wing kind of tucked away underneath the landing gear lever. Let's go ahead and turn on the APU. And you can watch that spooling up. And it will hang at 90% for probably a good 15 plus seconds. So you need to make sure you wait until it goes all the way up to 100. Okay, and then we can turn on the APU generator. At this point, you can also hit the pinky switch on the throttle on the left-hand side. You'll need to have that one key bound because you can't really see it in the cockpit too well. But put it to the aft position, And then you can go ahead and turn on your exterior lights. I put my navigation to flash, which is the forward position, and turn on your anti-collision so you can see those working. And now let's go ahead and contact ATC. So on your throttle, you'll want this key bound as well. Go ahead and push it forward for the AM radio, and then F5 for ATC, F1 for your airfield, and F3 for startup.
Call key. Enfield 1-1. Request startup. Enfield 1-1. Call key. Cleared for startup.
Okay, so at this point, go ahead and pull up your left throttle up over the idle detent and into the idle position. And keep your eyes on the engine instrumentation. Make sure you're getting hydraulic pressure from that system as well. And do the same for the right. And again, you can monitor the progress here and also the hydraulics. And once they've both stabilized, go ahead and turn on the left and right generators. And then turn off the APU generator. And now you can go ahead and kill the APU. Alright, so on your AAP panel, you've got your CDU and EGI switches. Put those into the forward positions. That'll get your CDU booting up. And that will take a good while for those to go through their boot sequence and then go through and finish aligning. So let's move on while it's doing that. We'll hit the SAS panel. So we got the left and right yaw SAS. And then left and right pitch. And then press and hold the takeoff trim button. And when it's done neutralizing any trim, this light will light up. So when you're getting a fresh aircraft, this will be pretty much instantaneous, but just be sure you don't skip this step. If you're coming back to rearm and repair and you're starting, or repair mainly, and you're starting the aircraft back up, you want to make sure anytime you've landed and you're going to take off again, you want to press and hold this until you see this light. And let's go ahead and turn on the anti-skid. And turn on the nose wheel steering. This one you'll need to be key bound because it's on the back end of the stick where you can't see it. And when you turn that system on, you'll get a light right here in the cockpit. And now that we see that it's passed the built-in test and it's doing the align, we can go ahead and proceed with the armament switches. We've got the CICU, JTRS, and IFFCC. You can either right-click on this once or you can left-click on this twice. If you just left-click once, it'll basically go through a built-in test on the HUD. So you can bypass that if you want by just clicking on it twice to get it to the up position. Now, as far as alignment goes, what you're looking for is this line right here on the CDU. It says T equals and then a number. And if you watch it long enough, you'll see that that number is slowly cycling up. It's at 1.7, now 1.8. You want to wait until this number gets to t equals 4.0. Until you get to that point, you're not fully aligned. But we can continue to do other things in the cockpit while we're waiting for that. So let's go ahead and turn on the left and right MFDs. And I'm skipping through the checklist a little bit, just bypassing the pieces that we have to do after alignment is completed. But these other pieces aren't dependent on that, so we can continue on to do those. And let's go ahead and turn on the countermeasures. I usually have mine in semi-automatic mode. And then all four of the sub-mode switches, so you got the missile warning, electronic countermeasures, radar warning receiver, and countermeasure dispensers. So all into the middle position. Go ahead and uncage your backup ADI. Just mouse wheeling over it. And we'll go ahead and wait for the other pieces here until the navigation system is fully aligned. If you get a white box on your MFDs here, you can go ahead and just click on OSB 11 here, which is under ACT, which is for acknowledge. That'll clear it. And if you've already got your weapons loaded out that you want, you can go ahead and do a DTS load all, which is on the DTS upload screen. You can do that on either one of these MFDs. You don't have to do it on both, just one of them, but it doesn't matter which one. But you just click on OSB 10, and when I say OSB, that refers to all these buttons on the outside rim of the MFDs. It starts with this one right here, and it goes clockwise. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then so on, going all the way up to 20. So hit load all, and there was some dots right next to these items that disappeared the moment we hit the load all. Those will be gone for about 15 seconds, and when those dots return, you'll know that you're done loading the DTS cartridge. And they're back, little tiny dots. So we can set our left MFD to the TAD, and we can set our right to the CD repeater. And we can see that we're at 4.0. So let's go ahead and hit the nav button on the CDU. And now on the AAP panel, we can switch to flight plan. And on the nav panel, we can hit EGI for navigation mode. And these switches are really hard to see if you don't have track IR. Even with track IR, it's hard to see. But you've got the EAC switch and the radar altimeter switches back here. Both of those need to go to the forward on position. And then you can go ahead and arm the ejection seat. At this point, you can go ahead and arm your pitot tube heat and switch your navigation lights to steady to let your fellow wingmen know that you're ready to taxi. And if you're in night operations, you can go ahead and put your landing lights into the down taxi position. And go ahead and put your flaps into the first detent down for takeoff and verify that it's down around 10 degrees. At this point, you're pretty much ready to go. Contact ATC for taxi clearance.
Colkey, in field 1-1. Request taxi to runway. Enfield 1-1. Colkey, clear to taxi to runway 9.
Okay. Now, if you can see, the text on the HUD by default is really small. What I always tend to do is do the star key on the numpad, which is just zoom in slow. just for a split second, maybe like a quarter second, half second, just to zoom in a little bit, and that makes the font on the HUD a little more readable. And while we're at it, because this is a little more involved than most other aircraft in DCS, we'll go ahead and do a quick contact to the ground crew to do a rearm and a refuel. So in order to do that, you don't just go simply through the communications menu. You actually do have to do some flips, some changes of switch settings inside the cockpit in order to talk to the crew. So you've got this rotary back here. You want to right click on it until INT, which is for intercom, is pointed to the 12 o'clock position, and then press down these volume buttons for INT and HM, which is hot mic. And now when you hit your communications menu, it'll say interphone at the top instead of AM or FM or UHF radios. So now we can go back to our parent menu and hit F8 for the ground crew and do a rearm and refuel. So now we can change our flare and chaff counts, our ammo, top off on fuel if we need to, and change weapons as necessary. I'm not going to do any significant changes here. I'll put a something that you can actually see. I'll go ahead and clear the rocket pods off.
Request refueling. Request rearming.
And I only changed the fuel by a couple of percent, so it should be pretty quick. So there's refueling. And there's rearming. And you got confirmation that they're done. And if you try and start taxiing before they're done doing their tasks, they'll yell at you, so you know to stop. But once you're done with that, you need to remember to go ahead and put the selector back with left clicking twice to put the VHF back to the 12 o'clock position, and left click on the INT and the HM buttons to pull them into the back into the up position. Now also, since I've rearmed, I should do a DTS load all in order to update my dismiss screen with the new weapons loadout. So I'll go ahead and show that here as well. So what we not want to do is press and hold the OSB under stat. And then we want to hit load, and then hit the stat again, and then we want to hit load. And now we're back to the DTS upload screen. We can go ahead and do another DTS load all. And once again, it'll take 15 seconds to load. And this will import the new weapons loadout that you've got set up on the aircraft. So you don't have to do it manually, which is considerably more tedious. Alright, and the dots are back, so we can put it back into TAD, and we'll put the right into CDU. And just check your caution panel, make sure you got no warning lights. We're good to go, and you are ready to taxi. As always, if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. I hope this helped. Thank you.